Hi there, welcome to the next video in my series of how-to videos for scrapbooking. These are oriented towards beginner or new scrapbookers or anybody who just would like a review of the basics. In the first video, I talk about some basic tools and I suggest that you come up with a very small assortment of tools just to get started. In the second video, I talked a little bit about cardstock and pattern paper and how to buy it and how to choose it as a beginner. And in the third video, I talked about embellishments, including letter stickers and other kinds of embellishment. And I have some embellishments picked out just based on those three first videos that I did. So what I did was I pretended that I was brand new and I pretended that my scrap room was a store, and I selected a collection pack, which includes pattern paper and 2 sheets of stickers. I selected some cardstock that coordinates with the collection that I picked, which is upside down, sorry about that. And I collected just a very small assortment of embellishments, so a set of enamel dots, a set of chipboard frames, and a small selection of wood veneer. This is less than what you would get in a full package of wood veneer, in a single full package of wood veneer. And then I also selected the 2 small letter stickers that I suggested, or something similar, and I also selected a black foam letter sticker, a neutral letter sticker, and then a playful, colorful set of letter stickers that coordinates with the papers that I had chosen. So this is the stash that I'll be working from for this layout, and assuming that I'm a beginner and only have access to these supplies and that I only have access to these tools. So I want to talk about the anatomy of a layout and what exactly goes into making a page. So the very first part of a layout is the background or the canvas on which the layout will sit. And so for the majority of scrapbookers out there, their background is going to be a 12 by 12 piece of paper or cardstock of some sort. There are other formats for your backgrounds. You can scrapbook at 8.5 by 11, which I talked about in my video about albums. You can also scrapbook on little cards that can be inserted into pocketed page protectors. You can even scrapbook on little mini books. There are a lot in journals. There are lots of different options for how to scrapbook. I'll be focusing on the 12 by 12 page today. So in addition to your canvas or your background that your layout will sit upon, we have photos. They're an important but not essential part of a scrapbook page. Not every page needs to have a photo, but as a beginner you'll probably usually be scrapbooking with photos. So I have these 3 photos selected that I included on this layout. And scrapbook page designs can vary from designs that include 1 photo or more than 1 photo, and they can be single page like this, or they can be double page where 2 pages are designed to be next to one another, and either the design spans both of the pages, or the design of each is coordinated to look good together and to be part of the same story. So this is a single page, and this page has 3 photos, and the next component of a layout is the title. And so for this one, the title is Too Cool for the Pool. And you can make your titles with stamps or with letters. You can write your title, you can cut it out, you can do all sorts of different things. I'm going to focus on letter stickers because they're a real easy way to add a title to your layout. The next component is journaling. So I have a little box here that holds my journaling, and journaling can be quite extensive. You can write very long stories, you can quote songs, you can do it on your computer and print it up, you can do it on a typewriter, you can spell out your journaling with these smaller letter stickers. There's all sorts of things. Your journaling doesn't have to be very long. It could be just a caption for your photo. It could be a little small blurb like this, or it could be quite extensive and take up a lot of room. You should have a sense of how long your journaling is going to be before you get started with your page, because if you have extensive journaling that you need to accommodate, you'll have to consider that when you're making your design and make sure that you leave room for it or design room around it. The last component of a scrapbook page is the embellishment. And so you might consider the papers that lie under these photos as part of the embellishment. And then there's also little clusters of embellishment here. This is really the fun part of scrapbooking, where we get to play with stickers and little pieces of wood and staples and enamel dots and any of those embellishments that you bought when you were at the scrapbook store or at the craft store. So that's what a layout is made up of, and now I'm going to show you how this page came together a little bit differently than my normal process videos. My regular process videos are not really designed for instructing scrapbooking. It's more just sharing my process with you so that you can see how I scrapbook. So this video I'm going to not speed up for the most part. I might speed up little bits of it, but it's going to be generally real time, and I will try to do my best to explain how I'm doing what I'm doing, and I will take my time and show you exactly how the tools work as I use them and talk about why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I hope you enjoy this slower process with more explanation. Leave me a comment if you have any questions, or if anything wasn't clear, or if you have anything to say about this video. So we're finally ready to put together a layout. So today, that's what I'm going to do with you guys, is put together a really basic layout that uses, that would be great for a beginner, and that uses these basic tools that I talked about in the first video. So I'm not going to use any tools that are not in this bin right here that I talked about in the first video. And in the second video, I talked about paper and cardstock, and I have some pattern paper here. I have the Echo Park Capture Life collection. This is an older collection because I just shopped my stash for this project. If you're out in the stores and looking at current papers, you're probably not going to find this one. And this collection pack comes with a set of stickers that includes an alphabet and another set of stickers that includes all of these fun shapes and words and elements, and then it also comes with all of these papers. Not entirely sure that I have all of the papers still, but I have a lot of them. And I also grabbed a set of enamel dots. It's not a complete set, but I think I can still get a layout done with it. Probably lots of layouts. And then I have a set of chipboard frames, which I talked about in my embellishment video, and so these are to add dimension and a little bit of interest. These are from Crate Paper, and I'm pretty sure they're from the, I can't remember the collection. It's a summer collection that had a water beach sailing type of theme. I can't remember what it was called. And then I also have a small amount. This, if you bought a package of wood veneers, you would have more than this, but I just have some heart wood veneers, more than I would need for a single layout. I have two sets of small letter stickers that I talked about in my embellishment video. So the gray ones and the craft ones, they're tile letter stickers, so they're going to be easy to work with. And I also went ahead and pulled out the three sets of letter stickers that I thought would be a good starting place. So I have a black foam, I have a neutral chipboard, and I have a fun, colorful, bright set just for some fun. And I happened to pick a fun, colorful, bright set that coordinates with some of the papers in the collection pack that I'm working with. So yours might not look like this. If you picked a different collection pack, you might have picked a different letter sticker. You may have only picked one letter sticker, or really for this particular collection pack, it comes with a letter sticker, so you might not even need to buy separate large letter stickers. So what I've done here is I've sort of created a scrapbooking kit that I can choose from. And if you were starting out as a beginner, as this is your very first layout, this would be all of the things that you have. But if you've been scrapbooking for a while, sometimes it's a good idea to just pull out a couple of things that you know coordinate with one another and just scrapbook from those supplies. So I have picked out some papers. I tried to pick, with the exception of this yellow, some fairly subdued background papers because I know when I was starting out I was feeling a little bit less bold about using really strong colors. So I picked a white piece of cardstock because that's always a great option for a background. I picked a really light pink piece of cardstock because I know that my photos are going to have a bold pink, and I know that I'm probably going to want to pull in some of this bold pink, and I think that bold pink looks really nice with a soft pink background. And just for another option for colors, I have this soft watery bluey green color which picks up on the bluey green in the paper. It's actually, wow, I picked that blindly and somehow I managed to pick one that is almost an exact match. I don't know exactly how I did this. This is like a creamy minty green that's got like a watery tone to it. My photos are water photos, so that's why I picked this. It happens to be a perfect match. So if I were in the scrapbook store shopping, I would have brought this paper around with me to coordinate that color with it. Then I have a cream, like a buttery cream colored piece of cardstock. And the paper I'm working with has lots of whites in it, so I'm not entirely sure that I'm going to use this. But the chipboard frames that I'm thinking about bringing in have some cream, so we'll see if I use that. And then I also have brown, which is a nice neutral color. These two are the Swiss Dot Basil paper that I talked about in the first video. And so they have a tiny little polka dot on them, but it's an embossed polka dot rather than a printed polka dot. So it's just one color of paper. It looks two colors because of the embossing. I also grabbed this yellow piece of cardstock, which I'm very unlikely to use as a background paper because it is so vibrant, but I knew that this paper had a vibrant yellow, and it turns out I did pick one that was pretty close. And I just thought I'd have it on hand just in case I wanted to cut up a piece of it or use it for a mat or use it for something. So this is what I'm starting with for cardstock. And then these are my pattern papers. I'll just flip through them so that you see what I have for my options. I'm going to put all of my embellishments in this little dish along with my enamel dots, and I'm going to put it aside because I usually save my embellishing until the very end. I'm going to put my cardstock right under my paper, and then the stickers, the letter stickers and the regular stickers, I'm just going to put these aside out of my way. I will use them, but not quite yet. I'm left here with my letter stickers, which I'm going to move well out of the way. So I've got my tools right here. They're a little bit out of frame, but I'll move them like this so that you can see that they're still there. I have my photos, which I'm going to talk about next, and I have my paper, cardstock and pattern paper. So the essential component that you need for scrapbooking is photos. A lot of the times these days our photos are stuck on our phones or on our computers, so you do need to have a way to print your photos. You can send them electronically to Walmart or Costco or Black's Photography or any place that you go to get your photos printed. If you're not a scrapbooker, you might not even know where to go to get your photos printed. So you might need to look into some of your local photo development places. A lot of times different drugstores and stores like Walmart and department stores will have these kiosks that you can go up to, and you can either wirelessly or plug in your phone or a card or something and print up your photos. I don't use those, so I can't help you with figuring that out, but if you just ask around or look around or do a little bit of research online, you'll be able to find a way to print photos locally and have them, even if it means going to pick them, sending them and then going to pick them up on another day. So you might need to do a bit of planning before you're ready for this phase. You do need to have photos in your hand for this part. So I have most of my photos that I take these days are square photos that I take on my iPhone. So these are 3 of them from a recent trip that we took. It wasn't just a little still slightly out of town for an overnight for an event. And so I have these 3 photos from our time in the pool at the hotel, and I'm going to scrapbook them. And I chose 3 photos because I think that a lot of times beginner scrapbookers do want to get more pictures on their pages because they don't have as many pages as those of us who've been scrapbooking for a while. And I think just the idea of scrapbooking lots of pictures at the same time appeals to lots of people, beginners and people who've been scrapbooking for a while as well. So I thought I would, rather than scrapbooking a single photo, which is what I typically do, I thought I would scrapbook all 3 of these and show you how, because I think that you as a beginner are probably more likely to want to scrapbook 3 photos than 1. So I'm trying to make this appeal to as many people as possible. So I'm going to scrap all 3 of these photos, so 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. And I am going to trim them down with my trimmer. I'm going to show you how to use a trimmer in a little bit more detail. And I'm going to show you every single step. I'm not going to fast forward this video. I'm going to do it real time. And I don't really have a idea of how this layout is going to turn out. But I've scrapbooked enough layouts that I have some ideas in my head about how I could combine these photos. So if you were new and you didn't have some ideas in your head, you might want to try some sketches. Creative Scrappers is a website that has lots and lots of sketches on the blog, and they also create these books. Now, if you're a beginner, you might want to invest in one of these books. I don't think she still sells the hard copy books. I think you have to get the ebook, and then you can go ahead and print up whatever sketches you want. But she also has a blog that has a whole bunch of sketches in it, and you can go through and just kind of decide on a sketch and print it up. And use it, like refer to it while you're scrapbooking, or you could print up a couple of sketches. So this book has lots of sketches, and what a sketch is, she actually does a really nice job of explaining the anatomy of a sketch. So what a sketch is it's a template that you can use for how you're going to combine some of your scrapbooking elements. So this one, for example, is a 12 by 12 because it's a square, and it tells you that these things here are photos or journaling. This one might be a journaling card, for example. You could use 2 photos, or you can make one be a photo and one be a journaling card. This big square is the background paper, or sometimes it's cardstock that you're using. And then these elements here, the triangles, circles, and stars, are all embellishments. So they might be flowers or chipboard pieces or something like that. So, and then this grayed section is a pattern paper, and this gray strip is another pattern paper or a strip of stickers or washi tape or whatever the case might be. So it's just an idea of how you can combine elements in a pleasing way on a page and come up with a layout that is balanced and looks really nice in the end. The other thing that you can do is you can look around and you can what we call scrap lift someone else. So scrap lifting is if you were to, I mean, these are all based on sketches, but let's say this wasn't part of a sketchbook and I saw this layout by Marielle Leblanc. Oh, I love Marielle. Her work is so awesome. Anyhow, if I saw this layout by Marielle and I thought to myself, I really like that. I'd like to make a layout like that myself. I could copy her layout if I wanted to and put little things up here and use a wooden background paper, like a photorealistic wood plank background. I could, maybe I have this collection and I might be able to use it, or I might have something similar and put these numbers in behind and, you know, decorate it up almost exactly, or maybe exactly if I had the same items that she has. Typically you don't, so you might just kind of make your own version of it. The important thing to know about scrap lifting is that it's okay. I mean, Marielle shared her layout with the world because she wanted to inspire other people. If you're going to take pictures of your project and post them online, it is very important that you give Marielle some credit for the original design. So if I were to do that and take a picture or do a process video about it or post it on Pinterest or whatever, I would probably link back to Marielle's original project, or at the very least just say her name and give a link to her blog so that people could find her as the original source of your inspiration. Many beginners don't post their projects anywhere, and so if that's the case, you don't even have to think about that. You can go ahead and copy Marielle entirely or a little bit, and that's fine. No one will even know about it, but it's not a bad thing to do anyways. It's just that if you're going to share it, it is very, very important that you give credit to the original artist. There are other companies and scrapbookers who create sketches as well, so you can Google scrapbooking sketches and you'll find lots and lots of websites that are dedicated to sketches and creating them and sharing them and doing monthly challenges or whatever the case might be. Page Maps is another popular one. The nice thing about Page Maps is that it's really well organized. The website is organized into single photo sketches, two photo sketches, double page sketches. It has 8.5 by 11 and 12 by 12. It has card sketches and all sorts of things. So it's a really well organized one. So if you want to look up Page Maps, that's another good resource in addition to Christine Davidson's Creative Scrappers website. I don't think she's making new sketches anymore, but the archives are all there, so you can look at the old sketches that she has, and they're timeless. So we talked about inspiration. You can go on Pinterest and or anywhere, YouTube, Flickr, or just Google Images and say scrapbook pages, 3 pictures or something, and you can find some inspiration for what you're working on. And you can use sketches, and you can scrap lift, you can look in magazines if you can still find some. So I'm going to start by picking a background paper, and I might change my mind, but for now I'm going to start with a white piece of paper because that's the simplest and easiest. It's a little hard for you to see on the camera, so maybe just for the sake of the video, I'll pick a pink one. I might do a last minute switch to white. So I am going to scrapbook on this pink background for now, and I'm going to trim up my photos. So I'm just going to move my papers over here so I can show you how to use this trimmer. So the trimmer, as I mentioned, looks like this. This is the Fiskars basic trimmer. It does have this arm on it that flips out for measuring longer pieces of paper that are longer than 5 inches. But my photos I'm not actually going to need to measure. So I'm going to trim this photo so that it has a small border around it. And it already has a pretty small border on 2 sizes just because I printed it up at the size that leaves a bit of a border on the left and the right. So my job here in trimming this photo is to just trim the top and the bottom, not all the way off, but so that I'm leaving a border on the top and the bottom that's about the same size as the border that is on the sides. So I'm going to place this photo so that there's a ridge on this, and I can just kind of make it flush pretty easily just by pushing it against it. And I'm going to, this does pop out because it's a low-end trimmer. I can't get it to pop out right now, but if it pops out, don't worry, it's not broken or anything. You just can separate these 2 arms a little bit and pull it and put the blade back in. So when I'm placing the photo, I'm placing it so that this channel, which is where the blade runs, is going to go right where I want my cut to be. So right now that's probably a little bit more of a border than what I need, so I'm going to move it up a tiny, tiny bit. I'm going to keep in mind that I can always trim off more, but I can't trim off less. So I'm going to err on the side of leaving too much of a border. And then so once I position my photo, I put the guard rail down, and I hold on to the photo and the guardrail, and as I drag my blade onto the photo, I'm going to want to press into the paper just a little bit so that I'm cutting right through the paper. So I'm going to go like this. And then when I lift it up, you'll see that I have this border on my photo exactly where I want it to be. I'm going to turn it around and do exactly the same thing, lining up this channel with where I want the cut to be, this channel right here with where I want the cut to be. And the channel's up there too, so you can, do your best to line it up on both sides. And if you're holding your photo flush against this little railing here, it will be straight. And there we go. I have a nicely trimmed photo. So I'm going to trim up the other ones just the same way. Then I'll just throw these in the garbage. I have my 3 photos and I have my background paper. Now there are a couple of different ways that I can run 3 photos across a 12 by 12 page. I could line them up like this. That would give me a nice structured layout. I could put some strips of paper, I could put some layers of paper behind it, so that there's lots of horizontal lines, and I could you know, put my title maybe up here and have some embellishments down here, maybe do some journaling. This is a really nice way to scrapbook 3 square photos. Another thing that I could do is I could line them up like this. So if I line them up, I could put them a little bit off center, because the rule of thirds tells me that it's nice to have them about a third of the way over. I could, if I was looking for a really symmetrical look, I could do them like this and then have some layers kind of coming out on either side of it that run the whole height of the page. If I line them up either way, this way or horizontally, I don't have any room on the top and the bottom. They span the whole 12 by 12 page perfectly. So these are not photos, but they're photo paper. So if I were scrapbooking 4 by 6 photos instead of squares, and if they were vertically oriented, they would take up a big part of my page like this. I would still have the same options, but I wouldn't have the option to stack them like this because there wouldn't be enough room. If they were horizontal photos, then I could only do them this way if I wanted to line them up like that. Okay. There are other ways to put photos on a page. You can spread them out like that. You can block them like this, especially if one is vertical and 2 are horizontal, or the other way. And then you could put a journaling block right there. So you can play around. This is the phase at which you can play around with the photos that you have. I have square ones, so I'll play around with square. And you can layer them so that, you know, less important parts are covered. You can go with a really kind of casual diagonal look like this. You can go with a bit of a grid, and then I could maybe put a journaling piece right here, for example. That's kind of a nice design. So at this point you can play around with the overall design of your photos and think about how you want to place them. If I layer them like this, then I can get rid of that girl who's actually not part of my family, like that. I could put the 2 similar photos on either side of the photo that's unrelated or different. I could make them kind of go like this, or I could make them go kind of straight across. I could always put an embellishment over that girl if she was really bothering me, or I could just leave her in for atmosphere. I think the girls ended up making friends with her anyways. But this is one way to overlap my photos, is one way of getting a little bit of space on either side. This is fine, but this is nice too. Problem with doing this is that my daughter's hand gets covered up, but her hand is cut off anyways, which is a no-no in composing your photos. You're not supposed to cut people's hands off. But anyhow, I'm not the best photographer in the world. So I guess if I want a playful look, I can kind of layer them and have them kind of staggered like that. That looks pretty good. So generally speaking, when I'm arranging these photos and the idea of having a journaling component as a separate element as well, I want to keep my photos together as one unit as opposed to kind of spreading them around like this. This is fine, and you could do it this way. There's no right or wrong way of doing it, but I find that it's easier for me to combine all of the elements that go into a scrapbooking page if I treat the photos as a separate entity. Now there are times when you might want to separate them and use maybe a grid style, and that becomes part of your design. But generally speaking, if I have my photos spread around the page like this, then placement of the title becomes difficult, which if I place the title too close to any of these photos, it looks like the title goes more with one photo than the others. Placement of my journaling becomes difficult. You know, there are options, but generally speaking, when I'm designing my pages, I try to keep my photos close together. So the other thing about combining photos is that you want it to make good logical sense. So I have two photos that are very similar to one another. They're both in the pool, and I have one photo that is my coffee with the pool in the background. And so this is more of an environmental shot, and these are more personal shots. So I could put those two together and then have that one off on the side, or I could do that, or I could say, well, let's put the environmental shot in the center, and then I've got some symmetry going on with a pool shot on either side of it. Now the problem with this arrangement is that Sophie's looking this way, and the other two girls, Sophia and Olivia, are looking off this way. Nobody's looking into the photo. So if I switched these two like that and like that, then suddenly everything is leading into the layout. Generally speaking, when you're arranging your photos, you want people to be looking inwards as opposed to looking off the page. So this is more pleasing to the eye than this is, because here one of them is looking center, which is nice, but these guys are looking off the page. So if I do it like that, it looks good. The other thing is that she's on this side of the pool and these guys are more on this side of the pool, so this kind of works. And this works okay as well. So I could arrange these any way that I wanted to based on that. So I really do like the symmetry that I get from putting the coffee cup in the center. So I'm thinking I might line up my photos like this, and I'm thinking I want to use this frame, but if I use this frame, I'm either going to cover up the logo on the coffee, which is an important part of what we like about that company, or I'm going to be covering up this environmental part of the shot, which kind of sets the tone for the overall feel of the pool. My journaling is going to be about how the pool in this hotel is not very fancy and it's actually quite freezing inside. You see I've got towels and my boots on and my coat while they're swimming in the pool. The water's pretty warm, but the room is very, very cold. We're there in the winter time, of course. So I don't want to cover up the environment because that's a big part of the story for this one. So I'm thinking I could put my journaling as on this and kind of tuck it under the photo and have my journaling on maybe a piece of paper behind that frame, like that. Then my layout, the overall shape of my layout takes on an L-shaped or a backwards L shape. I kind of like that actually. That's a nice design. And then my pattern papers underneath could kind of mimic that L. So I could have some pieces layered along the horizontal and a piece or two layered along the vertical and accentuate that overall shape. So that might be what I go with. So I can let my shape of the way that I have my photos and my journaling laid out dictate the shape of my pattern paper layers. So as far as choosing pattern papers, if I go with that as my overall design, then I go with some pattern papers. I really like this one. I really, really like it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it to work. Let's see. I think the key to using bold patterns like this is to use them in small quantities. So I might take a strip and put it above and below or something like that. I'll use some strips of this. So I'm going to cover it mostly so that I have a sense of the fact that it's going to be in a limited quantity. And I could take a strip like that, or I could take a strip like this. I'm going to get a bigger sample of the colors if I take it this way. But this is nice because it looks very horizontal, so I don't know, I'll have to decide on that. I really love this paper. I would love this to be one of the horizontal pieces that is spanning the background. So we'll keep that out. That's a nice one. This one is nice as well, but it's too similar to that. I wouldn't typically use that and that on the same layout. So I have a large scale print. I have a kind of busy, strong geometric print. It would be nice to have something kind of floral-ish. Something kind of floral. Oh, here's something that's flowery. It's not exactly a floral, but this print has lots of organic, curvy lines on it, so this might be a nice one to combine with these, and the color is beautiful with the water. So we've got those peeking. So I like, as I'm combining my patterns, I like to have little strips of it showing so that I can see the overall feel that I'll have for this layout. This is too similar to that. I'm not going to use this. Ah, here's a nice black. I like this one. I like this one. So what black does on a layout is it anchors things and provides contrast and emphasis. So this would be very nice to have to interrupt some other things. So I'm going to keep this out. I would use it in small amounts, maybe for matting or maybe for strips among my layers. I would love to be able to get this paper on here somehow because I just love the arrows. It's really pretty. So that might be it for now. I'm going to keep this one out because I also really like this. I'm going to keep them all out and off to the side, but on the top I'm going to put some of these cut aparts that I might want to incorporate at some point, and this pattern paper here as well, which I might want to incorporate. What I like about this pattern paper here is that it reads as a solid, and the script text on it is very curvy and organic and pretty, and I want to have a balance of organic, so I would consider this bokeh paper organic. It's very kind of natural, light looking, and this one is organic, and then this one is geometric, and this one would also be geometric, so I want to kind of have a balance of straight geometric things and curvy smooth things. So these are the patterns that I'm going to start with. That's the shape that I'm going with. I have my background, I have my photos, I have space for my journaling, I need to think about my title, and embellishments. So if I were to embellish, so I'm going to put some paper strips behind here, and then I'm going to add some embellishments. If I were to put my title right here, I could put some embellishments kind of around here, some embellishments around here, and some embellishments over here in the corner. That would create a nice triangle that goes around my photos and also takes into consideration my journaling. So it'll lead your eye around the page like that. So that's what I have in mind. I'm going to start by cutting a chunk of this paper that is wider than these photos when they're sprayed out like this. When they're spread out like this. So if I were to cut it to 6 inches, that would comfortably accommodate all of those. It might be a little bit too big at 6 inches, maybe 5.5 would allow it to encompass all of these photos and still have enough of it showing that you can see it. So I'm going to start with that. And I've showed you how to use this trimmer already. I'm going to take the bottom part of this pattern because it has more concentration of the bokeh print. And as usual, I'm lining up this channel with where I want my blade to go. There we go. And now I want this to be about 5.5 inches, and this trimmer only goes to 5 inches. So I'm going to pull out the ruler, and here is the 5.5 inch mark. I have a heavy mark there. I just did that with my Sharpie marker because that's how I cut a card, piece of paper for making a card. So 5.5 right there. And I'm just making sure that it's lined up against this little ledge, putting my guide down and then just dragging and pressing and dragging. And then I have this piece of paper that's 5.5 inches wide, and it's going to span the full length of the page. And I have to kind of think, I guess, about whether I want it to do that or if I want it to be a little bit smaller. So one look is to have this paper span the whole length of the layout, and it sort of becomes the background. Another look would be to cut it so that there's a little bit of pink on either side. I think I like it like this. I think I really like it spanning the full width of the page. So I'm going to leave it like that. And I'd like to use this paper as well here. So I'm thinking about just having it be a layer that runs maybe like this. So a little bit bigger. I could have it span the whole width like this. That's going to make this layout look very structured and organized, and I kind of like things less structured and organized. So I'm thinking I might want to make this layer go from here to here. So I'm going to zoom in and show you what I do. I'm going to take my pencil from my little tool supply that I have here, and I'm going to mark right here. That's how wide I want this piece of paper to be, and I want it to extend down up to about there and down to maybe a little bit further down on the bottom than it is on the top, just because I don't want things to be too symmetrical. So I put a little mark there and I put a little mark there. I'll bring this to my trimmer. Put this in my trimmer, and I have to find that mark. It's right there. So let me move my tools so I can move this up a little bit. Let me zoom in. So there's that line with pencil right there. My thumbnail is right on it as I move it around. I'm going to move it so that it's lined up with the channel where the cutting blade goes, and I'm just going to make sure that this is flush against the little ledge. Just like that. Then I'm going to, oops, nope, that's not just like that. It goes right there in the cutting channel, which is this channel right here. The little indent is where I want it to go. Not here, but here. So I've got it all lined up there. It's all lined up here. It's time to put my guard rail down. I'm going to zoom out so that you can see this. I'm going to pull this all back into frame so that you can see a little bit better. Hold the paper and the ruler in place and just drag the blade across, and now this is the right size. Now there is another marking. So this is the other mark that I made. And for that, it's a little bit hard to find, but I'm going to again line it right up with the channel, with the cutting blade channel. Make sure my paper is lined up against this as well. And then like that. So this is the perfect size for my next layer. So now we have this, and we have that. And I can show as much or as little of that as I want, and I can always go back and cut off some of this if it ends up being too much. It's no problem. And I don't know if I'm going to keep with this idea of doing the journaling like that, or if I might change my mind about it at some point, but for now I'm going with it. But it's kind of lacking some contrast. You'll notice that all of these papers are kind of, there's no contrast. Nothing is really popping. So that's where this black pattern paper comes in. I could run a very small strip of this right here, and it just adds a little bit of emphasis to the bokeh paper. The other thing I could do is I could run a little piece of this. If I could get underneath of it, I could run a little piece of it like this. I could even do it like that if I wanted. So I could basically mat this damask paper with it. And that looks okay, but then the damask paper is the only one that's matted, so it looks a little weird. I could treat it as a very small layer right there, but I think it's going to look better separating these two patterns like this. It says all you need is love. It's quite nice. So I think I will cut this piece of black paper to fit this. When I'm doing so, it says all you need is love up there, and then down here you're just going to catch the very tops of it. I could catch the bottom. I'm going to try cutting it just right to here. And so another thing that I sometimes do instead of drawing a little line is I might bend the paper where I want to cut it. So I'm going to bend it right here, just a little tiny bend. It's a great idea for when you can't get your hands on your pencil and you need to mark up paper. So now I'm going to put this paper so that that bent piece is right there, lining up the bend with the channel on the trimmer, the cutting channel. And I'm just going to hold my paper in place and give it a cut. Try not to think about what you're cutting on the back side, because I want this black paper, and feeling bad about cutting it is not going to help. So I am going ahead and cutting it. I'm only thinking about this layout. I'm not thinking, oh, but there might be another layout where I want to use that viewfinder. I'm not going to think about that because I'll find another viewfinder somewhere else in the products, or I could always go out and buy another copy of this paper if it really meant that much to me. So I'm going to put this paper like this. What about this paper, which I really, really wanted to use? This paper would make a nice accent running someplace. Let me think about how I might want to use this paper as an accent. And while I do that, let's think about developing this vertical side right here. So far, all of my papers are very lined up, and my photos are very askew, and my journaling is very askew. So I'm going to remove these and try to put a layer in here that's going to emphasize the verticalness of this side of it. And I'm going to go with the papers and keep this one fairly lined up. So if my photo, and the other thing is that I have this feeling like all of the papers are kind of running off of this side. So there's some cushioning of the pink background here, but there's none over here. So I'm going to want to run this one off the edge as well, so that this whole thing looks like it's scooched over to the side and right up against the edge. So I'm thinking about how big these elements are and that they're not going to be right against the pink, and trying to decide how wide this is and how long it is. I'm going to want it to run off the edge of the page here but not down here. So I'm going to make a little pencil line right here. I could fold it, but I'll go with a pencil line. And we'll say right here. And then I can always cut it down a little bit if I need to. So let's cut that one. Now, because I made a fairly thick line, there is still some pencil on the edge there. I'm just going to take it off with my white eraser that was in my box of supplies. I'm actually going to, there's a little bit of pencil line showing right here as well, so I'll just take that off as well. Now let's see how these papers come together. You never know until you give it a try, right? So far we have this horizontal element, we've got another horizontal element. It's all in the lower third of the page. I have this paper right here, which I'm thinking I'm going to run like this. And I could do it like that, but I think I'm going to run it right off the edge of the page like that. So see the difference? I could run it off the edge of the page, which is nice because all of the other papers here are running off the edge of the page. Or I could give it a bit of a cushion where you're seeing some of the background, like that. Neither is right or wrong. I tend to run things off the page because I like how it looks. And I could totally change my mind about this and decide to line them up like that. And like that, and make everything all straight and even if I wanted to. I could even put this right here if I wanted to. That looks very nice. Or I could go back to my original idea, which was to layer these and have them slightly askew and have the journaling be kind of tucked in and on a bit of an angle like that. So either look would be fine. It just depends on which thing you like. Now, what are we going to do about this journaling element? I really want to use this frame, or a frame. I guess my question is that the best frame to use? Because this package of frames comes with a whole bunch of frames. So let's see what the options are if I wanted this amount of journaling. So most of these are very similar to the one that I already have picked out in that they're all kind of cream colored. I'm going to lose this detail if I tuck it under. If I use this one, it stands out less against the background because it's white and the background paper is mostly white. This one stands out a little bit more. This one is nice because it has a detail up here that won't be covered, and it is in the right color scheme. It is white and blends a little bit with the background, but that's okay. I could outline it if I wanted to. I kind of like that. And I actually kind of like it on top. So I guess my other option would be to use one of these smaller frames. I could use this one. It stands out quite a lot. I would have less room for my journaling, but it kind of has a nice scale to it. It doesn't compete quite as much with the photos as this one does. This one is just slightly smaller than the photos. I guess it depends on how much I want to say about this one. I could even use them both. Ooh, that looks kind of nice. I think I like that. That might be what I go with. See how sometimes just playing around with something will give you a little bit of an idea. Now, this would be an awesome time to use vellum if you had bought some vellum, so I'll show you what vellum would look like. If I want to make a journaling element from this frame, and if I had some vellum on hand, which I didn't bring out as one of my original items that I'll be using today, so I'm going to assume that maybe you don't, but I'm going to show you how I would make one if I did have some vellum and what that would look like, and then I'll come up with a new idea using what I have. So if I had some vellum, I would position the frame so that it is not entirely, so that the vellum is not entirely covering the frame on the back, but close. So I would want it about like that. And then I'd make a little line right here. And actually, I might even just draw the little line right on like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're not going to see it. And then I'm going to cut out that little box. So I take my tape runner, which looks like this, and this one has a little closure, so you want to make sure that that is open. And then this area here that has the little bars of texture, usually a tape runner will have something with some type of texture that's different than the rest of it. The biggest mistake that people use when they pick up a tape runner and they try to use it is they use it this way, which is backwards. If it's smooth and has a hole in it, you're probably not holding it right. If it has some grip marks on it, you're probably holding it right. Any other one by a different company, this just has the same thing. It still has the grip parts that show you where to use it, so you want to put your finger there no matter which brand you're using. And so once you have it in your hand properly, you kind of hold it like this with your finger like that, and then you just press down. You don't have to press terribly hard, but you have to press hard enough that the sticky stuff gets put onto the product. There we go. So now this whole thing is pretty sticky. And then I'm going to take my vellum and I'm going to place it like that. I could have run this through a typewriter or printer and had my journaling already on it if I wanted to. I'm not an organized enough scrapbooker to take that kind of an approach to scrapbooking, but if I wanted to journal right on this, what I would do, so I have a piece of lined paper here, and I would place my journaling piece so that it lines up with the lines. Now it is a little bit sticky because the adhesive went out further than where the vellum is, so that's kind of convenient. It allows me to stick this onto a piece of paper like this. Now I can do my journaling right on it. Now, remember I talked about a couple of different kinds of pens right here? This is where, because this is not paper, it's vellum, you might want to experiment a little bit with a little scrap piece of vellum to make sure that the pen that you're using is going to work well on vellum and not get smudged. So I'm going to take my Zig Writer here, which is the pen that I recommended, and I'm going to make the letter A on this vellum, and you'll see that it kind of pools up a little bit, and if I rub my finger on it, it doesn't smudge. That is good information to have. I thought it was going to smudge. So if I rub my finger on it right away, it will smudge, but if I let it wait a few minutes, and now I rub my finger on it, it doesn't smudge. So this is an okay marker to use on vellum. So if it wasn't, I have my trusty Sharpie fine point, ultra fine point marker in the bin, and I can always pick that out and use it if this wasn't going to work. If you're drawing on shiny stickers, which we might do at some point on this layout, you'll want to use your Sharpie because these will not stick to shiny stickers. So the journaling that I want to write, I could practice my journaling. Okay, so what I've done here is I played around with a couple of different tries of journaling. I started with a story that was just going to be too broad to fit the details that I wanted to cover in this layout into the small little space for journaling, and then I started with again, it was a little bit too broad, and then I honed myself down to just talking about the pool room. So first I was talking about the overall trip. We went there for robotics, not going to fit in this space. Then I talked about the hotel we were staying at, and then I'd have to then talk about the pool room, not going to fit. So I started just talking about the pool room. So the pool room at the Old Orchard Inn was freezing in February, but the pool was warm. So the full story isn't going to fit on this journaling. I can either make another layout about the fact that we went to the Old Orchard Inn for Sophia's robotics festival or competition, or I could stick other little bits of journaling that tell that part of the story around my layout. That's probably what I'm going to do. So one of the great things about journaling on vellum is that you can follow the lines on a piece of paper. So as I've showed you, I have stuck this journaling piece to the paper so that I can see through it. I'm going to space my journaling so that I'm kind of keeping in mind, and I can actually trace around the inside of this so that I can refer to it and know how to put my letters so that they're going to fill up the space properly. So I need to fit the pool room in this first line. You want to make sure that when you're printing on a layout that you're relaxed and comfortable and just embrace your own handwriting as it is. You can practice your handwriting and make it nicer and more uniform, and play around with the style of your penmanship in just practice notebooks. That's what I do with mine. But just remember that your penmanship doesn't have to be perfect or necessarily all that nice. It's, just about capturing the story at this point. So now the second line has to have at the old. And old is the first part of the name of the hotel. And then Orchard Inn. February. And if you make a mistake, just fix it. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. And then comes my exclamation point. So I can maybe put a little enamel dot or something over that erroneous, I can put an enamel dot over that erroneous exclamation point, so don't freak out about it. And then, but the pool was warm. So this next line has to have, but the pool was. But the pool was warm. And there we go. So that's what my journaling piece looks like. It's not perfect, doesn't have to be. So I now have this journaling piece that has a piece of vellum inside of it. If you didn't have vellum, I'll show you another thing that you could do because you might not have vellum. I can easily peel this right off. It might tear the frame a little bit, but it is the back side, so it doesn't really matter. So I'll show you another option for your journaling. I noticed that this paper here has little squares that are the perfect size for nesting inside of these frames, and you could, instead of doing your journaling, you could put a little image. You could put your journaling on this, for example, or inside of this. You could use any of these. So this one kind of appeals to me because it picks up on the bokeh that's already on here, but it's a nice neutral one that I can do some journaling on. So I'm going to cut this one out, just using my scissors. I'm keeping in mind that it doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be framed on this, which is already sticky from before, so I'm just going to stick this in place. There we go. And now I have another option for my journal. So because this isn't see-through, I can't put a lined paper behind it to journal on, but that's okay. I'm still going to take this and I'm just going to try to do my best. If I was really wanting to do my very best job with it, I could use my ruler and draw some lines on this. In fact, maybe that's what I'll do. So I've just put this video on fast forward for this portion so you don't have to watch me draw lines with a pencil and a ruler because you probably know how to do that. I'm just eyeballing the spacing of these lines and I'm trying to end up with 7 of them. I think I ended up with one too few. So I'm going to, as I write out the words that go to this journaling, I'm going to be mindful of the fact that I am going to have one less line, and so I need to squeeze it together a little bit more at the bottom. So I have my journaling on this card now, and now I can go back with my white eraser and just erase those tiny little faint lines. And just while you're doing your erasing with your white eraser, just make sure that you're using a very light touch. You can go back over it a couple of times if you need to, and it should work really great. So that's an alternative look for my journaling as opposed to the vellum, which you might not have. So I'll stick with this one for my layer. Then we have our square element that's going to bring some height to our layers and our layered journaling inside of the frame. Oh, that's looking pretty good. And I would think that I'm almost ready to start embellishing. My only question is, am I going to use this paper that I wanted to use so much? And if so, where and how? I could place another layer kind of like this. I'm not convinced that I like that, but it does introduce that paper. The other thing that I could do is I could add another layer right here. Just a little thin layer of it. No, I don't like that. It's too busy. Too busy. Sometimes you have to try something to know that it's not going to work. I could put a layer right under this and over to the... Yeah, I kind of like that actually. Now what I think I might do if I do that is I will take this whole arrow piece and cut it down a little bit so that it's more like this and this, so that the overall size of that layer is not changing. I'm not entirely sure about that. I mean, another thing I could do is put a smaller layer of it right here. Yeah, I think I like that better. Yep, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut a smaller piece of this, and I'm going to make it, I'll make it go all the way out the same size as this, and then I'll play around with it if I want to cut some of it off on the side. And and I'll make it fall within that arrow piece. Okay, so at this point I have the overall structure of my layout all set out. It's an L-shaped, reverse L-shaped layout, and I have my paper layers are all in place. I know where my photos are going to go. I have my journaling. I have to think about where I'm going to put the title. I could put the title down here. I talked a little bit about putting the title here and having a visual triangle, embellishments here, here, and here. At this point, I'm ready to start gluing down my layers. So before I do that, I have to decide if I'm going to leave my layers just the way they are, or if I want to do something to them. So this would be the point at which, for me, with my style, I would be outlining these, and that's what I'm going to do. If you're not into outlining or don't want to outline or don't want to give it a try, you could leave your papers just as they are. The other thing that you could do is you could ink the edges of your pages. Now, I did not talk about ink as one of your basic supplies, so you may not have ink already, but if you did have ink, you could take, so for this layout, because I have black as one of the elements in the layout already, I would take a black ink such as this distress ink, but any black ink would do. I like the distress ink pads because they're easy to handle. They're a nice smallish square as opposed to a rectangle, and the pad is just easy to apply to the edges of the paper. You could ink your edges by going directly, by running over them. I'll just do it on the scrap so you could see the look that you would get. You just run your ink pad over them like this, directly, and you get this dark edge on the edges of your papers, and it just kind of ties everything together and gives a nice finished look. You're not going to be able to see it unless if I put it against another piece of paper. So see how that looks? It's quite nice. It's a nice way to bring all of your papers together and give them a nice finished look. The other thing that you could do is you can take an ink applicator like this, which you can buy at the craft store, or you can just use a makeup sponge, one of those white triangles, and you just kind of pick up some ink with it, and then you run it over your paper like that. And this way you get a bit of a smoky edge around it. It looks a little bit more distressed. So those are two different looks that you can get with ink, which you may not have if you're a beginner, so it's not something that you absolutely need to do, but I thought I would point out that that is something that you could do at this phase if you were wanting to go for that look. The look that I usually go for is one of outlining. I like how outlining adds contrast to the pattern papers and brings papers together to look like they all belong together, even if they're very different from one another. And I just like the finished look and the touch of black that it tends to bring in. So because these are going off the page, it's okay that I haven't decided how big I want these to be. Like basically I haven't decided yet if this layer is going to go here or here. I think it's going to go like that. I'm going to go ahead and commit to that before I even do the outlining, because I want to remember that that's what I want to do. So now these two are stuck together, they're just one unit. And when I glue down my layers, I often leave lots of space unglued. That allows me to decide to stick things in there if I want to, and it only takes a small amount of glue for two papers to stick to one another, so just running that strip down there is fine for this. The only thing is that if I end up cutting off that strip, if I were to put it like this, then they obviously won't be stuck anymore. So I have to kind of keep that in mind, especially where I'm not sure where I'm placing this. But I think I'm going to place it Well, it doesn't matter, I can cut it off later. What I need to do next is remove my pictures and frames and take all of these pieces of paper and outline them with marker. And if you don't like that look, then you can skip this step, but that's what I like to do. And because I don't want to accidentally go off the page and mark on my white desk, I'm turning this paper over so that, remember, this cardstock has a textured side and a smooth side. I'm using the textured side, and so I'm going to turn it over and do my outlining right on my background paper. That way, if I have any stray lines that go off, I'm going to get it on this pink paper and not on my table. Now I am going to switch markers at this point just because this marker is running out. This is just a similar, this is a Faber-Castell Pitt pen. It's one of the ones that I did mention in the original video about a good option for another pen. So this is how I outline. I just run the marker along the edge of the page. So I've just sped up this part as well because you probably don't need to see this in full speed, but I'm just using a very straight, stiff arm as I do my outlining. I tend to move my whole arm as a unit and keep my wrist fairly stiff in order to get the straightest lines. They don't have to be absolutely straight. You'll see that I am actually double outlining, and that just gives it a bolder look than single outlining. And it's also a really great way to hide your mistakes, because if your line looks a little bit wobbly, they sort of interlock and end up looking quite nice together. So I decided to outline around the whole perimeter of this layout. I don't always do that, but I thought that it would make a nice look on this particular one. So now I'm just putting all of these pieces of paper back the way that I had already decided they would go. And I'm just using my Tombow glue tape for that and putting everything back pretty much the way that I had decided it would go. But here I'm playing around with an idea of whether I'm going to run that background paper the whole span, or if I'm going to push it over and have a bit of pink showing over there on the left side where I'm pointing right now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the process. So I'm aligning this paper so that there's slightly less space down here than there is up here. I want all of my elements to be a little bit south of center. So I am going to place this one, and as I was placing, I decided against the idea of running this strip straight across. I really like the white space to be able to stay connected instead of breaking up the white space into a strip down here and a bigger piece up there. There's no right or wrong way of doing it, but I'm mindful of the fact that when I do push this over, I can't bring it over like this much, which would look really great. I have to put it over just a little bit. Basically, this is going to bring a little bit more interest over here because there's contrast between these pieces of paper and all of the corners that they have. There's contrast here, which adds interest to this area here as opposed to this, which takes away a little bit of the interest. And because my photos are going to be spanning the length of this, and I'm going to have a cluster, my 3 clusters are going to be here, here, and here, I like the idea of having this be a little bit open. Either way is okay and right. There's no right or wrong. So I just attached, so wait a minute, I'm going to attach this first. So I have sticky on this already, so I have to be careful that I don't accidentally stick it to my layout. But I'm going to stick this so that it is further down than up. I don't want it to be too symmetrical looking, so I want it to be obviously off the center from top to bottom. And then I have some sticky that I just put on this, so I'm going to place this so that it's a little bit like that. And then I have to do one more thing in this changed design, is that these 2 papers now end at the exact same spot because they were going to run off the edge of the page. So since they don't do that anymore, I'm going to have to move them. That's one of the things that I love about Tombow Mono adhesive, is that you can very carefully pick things up. If you do a last minute change like I just did, you can pick things up, and now I can just change how these papers are layered. So I can bring this one in a little bit, like that, and then I can bring this one out a little bit, like that. And there we go. Now everything is aligned over here with the edge. Now I can take my scissors and just flip it over and follow this line. You'll make it a little bit easier for yourself with cutting through multiple layers if they're all glued down properly, so that I can pick this up as one piece and cut through all of them at once. So I'm going to just put the edge of my scissors right against the edge of the pink background paper and follow that line all the way down. I'm cutting not only through this orange paper, which is the arrow paper, but I'm cutting through all of these layers at the same time in one straight line. It might seem like it's hard to cut a straight line, but when you have a line to follow, like this pink paper, it makes it easier. So there we go. Now that is the structure of my layout. So it's like the corner of a plus. Now I can place my photos, which will be a little bit more overlapped than they were before. And I have my two journaling pieces right there, my two frames, just like that. And it's looking really great. I'm very pleased with it. Now I have to decide on my title. I have these letter stickers that I picked out from my Picking Out Embellishments video, and I'm thinking that this subtle font is just not going to work with the bold elements that are in this, so I'm going to put that one out of the running. And this one here I think is going to be a great choice because it's going to have good readability and be nice and bold and stand up to some of these darker elements that are in the photos. And I don't want to not use this because I think that this letter sticker, although it's not exactly the same color of blue, it really makes the blue in this layout pop out, and it's very interesting. I don't think I would want to make the entire title in this color just because it would be a lot, but I think a combination of this font and that font will look quite nice together. So if I'm thinking about titles, first of all, it's important that you don't let the title intimidate you or keep you from completing your layouts, so it's better for me to call this something very plain like Old Orchard Inn, or, you know, Freezing Cold Pool, or something like that. Even as lame as that might be, it's better to just have it done and have it in than it is to try to think about the very best title. I know that when you're first starting out, if this is your first or second or third layout, the title is going to seem really important because there's only 2 or 3 pages in there to look at, but eventually this will be one of many layouts that you have, and the title is not going to matter as much then as you think it does right now. So try to let go of the idea of coming up with the perfect title. I would like to have a title that uses at least two different words so that I can use these 2 different fonts. And I'm telling the story of, so I want to kind of think about the story that I'm telling. So the pool room at the Old Orchard Inn was freezing in February, but the pool was warm. Somewhere else I'm going to put that we were there for the robotics festival or the robotics competition. Cool pool. Cool in the pool? cool, fun in the pool. Pool. Pool that's too cool. Too cool for the pool. Too cool for the pool. There we go. Too cool for the pool. I've got it. I'm going to put cool in these letters if I have the right letters. Oh, no. I only have one O, but look, I have these 2 zeros. So I can do, maybe I could do pool in this. Too cool for the pool. When I think about writing out the word too cool for the pool, let me write that out. So, if I were to write out the title, Too Cool for the Pool, I would, if I put the blue letters down here, there's not going to be balance. It'll be black, black, probably small letters, and then blue. It's going to be off balanced. If I put the cool in the blue letters, then it'll be black, blue, some smaller letters, and then back to black. I think that's going to give me more balance if I close in the blue letters with some black above and some black below. And the other thing that I could do is I could do my title like this. Too cool for the pool. And then I could run it along this horizontal line and take advantage of that horizontal line, which is kind of nice. I could also break it up and put too cool for the pool. So let's spell out the letters and see what we can come up with. So I have a piece of waxed paper, and I've decided I'm going to write the word cool in this font. Do I have a C? Yes, I do. I even have a capital C, so I have C-O-O-L. Yes, I do. So I have everything that I need right here. And I'm just going to start in the middle of my layout of my title because I'm going to play around with the placement, so I'm going to actually place these and cut out each letter separately. Because I want to emphasize this word, I might want to put little squigglies around it or something, so I'll just put those on now. I can always take them off if I don't want them. So I have the word cool. Now I have to spell out, and I have 2 packages of these in one, wait a minute, what do I have here? Yeah, I have 2 packages of the same letter sticker in one package here, so normally when you buy thickers you're not going to get 4 sheets of stickers, you'll just get 2. So let's find, and the cool thing about these letters is that I could replace any of the O's with these hearts, so that's kind of cool. 2, and I love how this title is going to have all kinds of double O's in it. Too cool. Too cool for the pool. So I'm not going to replace any of my O's with hearts because that will de-emphasize the similarity of these words. And part of what appeals to me about this title is that there are all these double O's, and if I replace some of them with hearts, then that's going to de-emphasize that. So, too cool for the pool. And I need to think about where I'm going to put for and the. Too cool for the pool. See how that is taking away from my L shape. So if I were to do the title like that, I would want it over here. Too cool for the pool, like that, maybe? I don't love that. I think I might go with this. For the pool. Too cool for the pool. Now, remember these smaller letters? I'm going to go with gray because I've got other black and gray elements on this. So I'm going to put, oh, this is, I love this phase. This is fun. Too cool. It wasn't actually too cool for the pool. It certainly felt too cool for watching beside the pool. Too cool for the pool. And I could overlap these if I wanted to. So the nice thing about using waxed paper is that you can play around with different looks. Too cool for the pool, just like that. Looks pretty good, eh? Yeah, that's pretty good. The other option would be to put it down here. Too cool for the pool. I kind of like that better, actually. So what I like about the title being down here is that there's less layers for it to compete with. When it's up here, it's got these 3 layers of paper. And it's okay with the black, but the blue is going to really compete with that blue there. It's okay. It's still readable. But the nice thing about having it down here is that there's more contrast for the words. And I also like that the 3 large, 1, 2, 3 large words are kind of lining up with the 3 photos. And the for the become kind of secondary. Too cool for the pool. That's kind of awesome. I love it. So what I'm thinking about now is how I might want the word cool to pop off the page even more. It's already popping up off the page in terms of the title because it's different than the other letters that are used for the title, but I really want it to kind of really pop out. So in order to do that, one of the things that I could do is I could put this title on something else that will help it to pop up. And I'm thinking actually about this sticker. Now this sticker has this Create Joy, which is going to compete with the word cool if I use it as it is. I could, because the word is going to pop up because of the sticker, I could then get rid of these 2 little squigglies and just have it be too cool for the pool. In order to do that, I would have to cover this with something. I could cover it with almost anything, but washi tape comes to mind as a really great supply that I talked about in my first video. Washi tape would be a great thing to put around that to cover it up. If I didn't have any washi tape, I could also just take a little strip of paper, and maybe I'll do that because I didn't introduce washi tape at the beginning of this. I could find myself a little piece of neutral paper, like for example that bokeh pattern that I already used in there. I could look for some more of that. I think there's a whole sheet of it somewhere. There's the blue one. Oh, here's some. Here's some of that. So, and, oh, it's kind of similar to that as well. So what I could do is I could measure how tall this is. So it's 1 inch. It's more than 1 inch. I mean, it's less than 1 inch. But if I cut myself a piece of paper that was 1 inch, that would cover the Create Joy. And if my piece of paper was also more than 2 inches, it would cover it. So if I cut a piece of this that's 1 by 2 inches, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than 1 by 2 because I'm going to put little fishtail banner flag tails on it. Fishtail banner flag tails. That's a long bunch of words to describe something. So let's cut off the manufacturer's strip first of all. So I'm just going to cut off the manufacturer strip, and then I'm going to cut this at 1 inch wide using the 1 inch marker on my trimmer. I'm not going to cut all the way through because I don't necessarily want to cut up this piece. And then I need this to be longer than 2 inches. So let's make it 3. So this is a little 1 by 3 inch rectangle that I can layer on top of this circular sticker. I'm going to take the sticker off of the sticker sheet so I can play with it more easily. I'm going to put it on a piece of wax paper. Sometimes stickers don't peel off of wax paper all that easily, but if it doesn't peel off, you can just put some adhesive right on the wax part, and that's how, and then you can play with it that way. So see how this perfectly covers Create Joy. It gives me a great little place for Cool to go. I can even leave the little squigglies on either side of Cool if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a little fishtail in each edge of this little strip so that I can create, what I'm doing is I'm creating a little embellishment that's going to hold my word Cool. So in order to do that, I can use either of my scissors. I don't have to use my precision scissors, so just in case you don't have a set, I'll use my regular scissors. So what I do when I create a banner like this is I will often just fold my paper in half this way to get a little crease mark at the center part. Kind of like that. I line up the 2 corners, so I'm pinching my paper and I'm lining it up so that my 2 corners are right on top of one another. And then I'm going to take my scissors, holding, let me zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to hold my little rectangle like that, and I'm going to cut from there to there. So I'm just, and the result is a nice even fishtail banner. Now I'm going to grab that little piece that I cut off and hang on to it because I want the other side to be the same. So when I fold this side, if I wanted to, if I really wanted them to be the same, I could take my little pen and I could go like that. And then I have a line there to follow. There we go. And now my banner is pretty even and pretty nice. I can put it like that and then like that. If I wanted to make it look even more finished than it is right now, I could take my gray marker. Now I'm not going to use my black marker because I don't necessarily want this to compete too much with the letters that I'm putting on top. So I don't want high contrast here, I want low contrast. I'm basically outlining in this case, not for high contrast, but just for some finishing. So to finish this little piece off a little bit, I can just outline it like this. Now I can glue this like this. And one of my favorite things to do with banners is this. I have these dimensional foam squares. They're from EK Tools, and I talked about them in my supplies video. So one thing that I could do is I could take these dots, place them on either side of the banner, like so, and then my banner will flip up a little bit. So now my banner has a little bit of dimension to it. See how it's not going to sit flat? Then I can take the word cool and put it right on top. When I'm placing the words cool, and you'll notice when I placed the banner, it's down, there's more space on top than there is underneath, and I just followed the words for that. I just covered them up exactly. And I want to place these letter stickers so that they're centered on the banner. They don't have to be perfectly lined up. I'm just going to scooch them all over a little tiny bit because the letter L is not quite as big as the letter C. That will often happen. There. It still looks a little bit off because the word L is kind of shifted over to the left further than the letter C is, but that's okay. So now I have the word cool on its own little thing, and I'm not going to use those little squigglies. Now it says too cool for the pool, and see how that just pumps up my title a little bit more. So now I have my background, I have my photos which are on layers of paper, I have my title, I have my journaling, I need a date, and I need some embellishing, and then I'll be done. So office supply stores have these roller date stamps, and these are really helpful to have. Another great step up basic supply. I did not talk about these stamps, nor did I talk about ink in my basic supplies video. So I'm going to not use this roller date stamp for the purposes of this video, but if I wanted to, I could use it with some VersaFine black ink or any kind of black ink or gray ink. I could put my date right, you know, down here. I could put it up over here. I could put it down here. I could put it almost anywhere. It's very inconspicuous when you do it, especially if you were to use a gray ink, which is less contrast than using a black ink. So that is one way to add your date. I'm going to just add mine in writing because I didn't talk about these supplies yet, but that would be one extra touch that you could add to your layout. So I'm going to use my gray pen since I didn't want to use the stamp because that would be cheating. And I just wrote the date there on the side. And then I'm just going to put all of these pieces back together so that I can be ready to start gluing the pieces down. So now I'm going to start gluing down these elements that have been shifting all over the page and making it a little bit difficult for me to decide where I want to put my embellishments. So I'm just running some of that tape runner in some of the corners of this frame. And I want to place this frame so that it is going to leave room for my inside frame to be in the place where I want it to be. I'm going to place my frame here, right like that, and I'm making the edges relatively even. I don't want it to be too wonky. I want these to be lined up pretty nicely with one another. Now where this is going to determine where this photo is. I don't want multiple angles here because this angle is already different from these angles that are already on my paper, so I don't want too much wonkiness going on. So I'm going to allow this line of the photo right here to line up with these lines on the frame right here. I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see what I mean. So I'm going to keep these lined up. I kept the inner frame lined up with the outer frame, and I'm going to keep the photo lined up with both of those frames. That way there's not just too much wackiness going on with different angles here. So I've got, these are all in line with one another, the background papers, and then I've got the journaling and the photo will be lined up with each other as well. So when I glue down this photo here, because it's layered over top of a piece of chipboard, and the chipboard here is thicker than a piece of paper would be, I have an angle happening here, and so what I want to do is put some foam adhesive under the photo to pop it up so that it's even with the chipboard frame that's right here. Okay? It's okay that the chipboard frame is popping up a little bit. It's just a little bit warped, which is okay. If I had a stapler on hand, I could actually staple this in place, and that would actually look great and add a little element of metallic texture, but I don't, so I'm not going to right now. So I have to grab my foam, and I'm just going to layer it so that I'm just going to place it on the photo. These are acid free, so I don't have to worry too much about my photo discoloring. And now this part of the photo is doesn't need a foam dot, or it'll be back to not being the right height anymore. So I'm going to run some adhesive right there. I'm going to place these dots right like that. And just to support this photo, I'm going to put them right there and there as well. So now this is going to line up right like that. Before I place it though, I need to put this photo in place. This one was going to go over top of that one and that one. So I'm trying to think about whether I might actually want it to go like that. So what I don't like about this is that it looks like they're kind of successively important if they go up, 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 up. I would rather have this one lie on top of both of the pool photos, but in order for me to do that, this one is either going to have to be slanted, which is okay, or these two are both going to have to be higher than this one, which is okay. That's all right. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm going to place some pop dots on this one to pop it up a little bit. These pop dots are sticking to each other more than what I'm used to. I usually use a different brand. So now I'm not going to put these pop dots all the way over to the edge of this photo because I need it to overlap with this. So I'm just going to peel off the adhesive backing on those foam adhesive pieces, and then I'm going to place this photo down in the spot where it belongs. And I fast forwarded this part because it's a little bit fussy. I take my time when I'm scrapbooking. This whole video is 2 hours long, but I probably spent more like 2.5 to 3 hours on this overall project. Especially when you're starting off, don't worry too much about how long it takes because you're learning as you go. And you know, I'm pretty established and it still takes me a long time to do a layout. At least, well, most of my layouts take about 2 hours. So I'm just lining up those photos so that they create nice horizontal lines along the borders. That everything is in place except for the title on this layout. Look at this, I didn't glue any of those pieces down yet and they're still holding strong. So I think it's safe for me to say that I can glue down this other part. So let's do that right now. When I'm applying this glue, I want to apply it in such a way that I know it's not going to show. I don't need too much glue, just a little bit. There we go. And like I said, I like to glue the center so that I can go ahead and put different layers in there if I wanted to. I'm probably not going to in this case, but I like to have the option. First of all, it's good to step back and look at it because I'm now noticing that cool is significantly lower than everything else, which I didn't notice when I was looking at it from my own perspective. So looking at it in the video camera or, you know, taking a step back is very helpful. So cool needs to go up, but if it does, it's going to cover the word before. And this logo says people and the planet before profits. I'd like to keep that. I mean, I know what the logo is. So I'm in a position here where if I pull it down, the letters will be now on the pattern paper instead of on the photos. which means that there's going to be some layers showing through, which is okay. But I get to see more of the word before, which I kind of want to have in there. I like it like that. So because the word cool needs to be placed more carefully than anything else, I'm going to place it first. It's okay if it covers a little bit of the word before, but I don't want it to completely block out the word before. And I'm mindful of the fact that this is horizontal, and I want it to line up with my other horizontal items that are on my page. So I'm holding my fingers like this so I can see the overall gist of how this is going to look as I place it, because I've just taken the wax paper off the back of it, so it is sticky now. And when I place it, I may not be able to change my mind, so I want to be careful about that. And I think if I place it right here, it's still up on the cup, but you can still make out the word before. That's about as high as I can get away with placing it and still have the word before be readable. There we go. Now I can place 2 layered in there. Oh, I really like how this title looks. It's very fun. So I'm actually just going to continue to place these letters, and I put the first, well, it's actually the last O so that it overlaps, so it underlaps the banner from the word cool. And I'm lining up the black letter stickers so that they're all sitting right on the lower edge of the black pattern paper. And then I placed the for and the as full single pieces. And when you layer those tile stickers like that, it allows you to place them as a whole word. Now I'm just moving on to do some embellishing, and I just left this part on fast forward because it can be really long and tedious picking out your embellishments. So I start by picking a couple of larger shapes that I want to place on this layout, and I'm going to start by placing this camera right here. And the way that it hung off the edge of that photo, you'll remember that the photo has foam adhesive on it, so I'm going to put foam adhesive under the camera as well so that it's at the same level as the photo that it's layered upon. And I grabbed one of those wood veneer hearts to put in the center of the camera, and I have a couple of other stickers. I've just got them kind of stuck to my finger as I decide where I'm going to put them. I don't think Adventure is going to make it onto this layout. That heart, it is quite nice, but I put the Capture Life up there in the corner, and now I'm looking at this frame. This is a frame that came on the sticker sheet, but then I have these chipboard frames as well. And so I'm going to use the chipboard frame because it has a little bit more dimension than the sticker frame, and then I can put these chevron stickers inside, and they point to the title. And I love chevrons to point to the beginning of a title because it sort of cues your eye to know that that's where to start looking at this layout. So I'm putting some of these stickers back. I couldn't remember where the frame was from, but I eventually found it. And now this little heart, the pink heart, looks really cute there. And then I took the anchor and put it right there. It's, it's not a sailing themed layout, but I still really thought that the anchor sticker was really cute. So I just used my tape runner to adhere that frame in place, and then I added the anchor sticker on top. I put a little foam dot behind that red, I guess it's a pink heart, to keep it standing up in the spot where it belongs. And I'm going to place these wood veneer hearts all around the layout. I'm sort of developing 3 clusters. I spoke earlier in this video about 3 clusters that will make a triangle on this layout. So one triangle is where the Capture Life is, and I'm just adding an asterisk there to lead your eye over to it. That asterisk is from the foam letter stickers. There were a couple of extra shapes in the set. And then I also have an asterisk from the glitter blue foam stickers as well. Again, that's from the thicker package. And that, I really love to do that. That's a little tip that I have for making your titles look like they really belong on a layout, is to add some of the extra shapes from your thicker package to your layout. And it just kind of continues that texture and that color elsewhere on the project. So I'm going to pull that idea of having a thicker from each of the set, a sticker from each of the set of thickers on each of my 3 embellishment clusters. So I have the one up in the top that says Capture Life. Then I have the one with a camera down in the bottom right-hand corner. And then I have the one with the anchor down in the bottom left-hand corner. Each of those clusters is going to have really similar elements in it, and I'll talk about that at the end. I'm using my Tombow Mono Multi-Adhesive, which is that liquid adhesive I talked about in my first video about supplies, and I'm using that to glue down my wood veneer pieces. It's great for adhering anything bulky to your pages. And now I'm going to place enamel dots. I'm going to put 1, and I'm using all the same color. I'm putting 1 in each corner. I could have put a set of 3. I often put sets of 3 enamel dots together, but I thought I would use a little bit more restraint in this layout and have this one be a little bit more simplistic with its embellishments, because there's a lot going on here in terms of number of photos and all of the layers that are behind those photos. I don't want my embellishments to take away from this layout at all. I really just want them to accent the layout. So I'm using a very light hand with my embellishments this time. Embellishing is one of the funnest phases of doing a scrapbook page for me, and so I really love embellishing, and you can go ahead and go to town with it and put tons and tons of embellishing on your pages if you like, or if you like it to keep it a little bit more simple, then you can use even fewer than what I'm using here. As I've said before, there's no right or wrong way to scrapbook. You just want to do what's fun for you and what looks good to your eye. Now, I was having a bit of trouble with that frame. It kept popping up. I could have put some of that Tombow Mono Multi-Adhesive on there. That would have held it for sure. But because I had a stapler handy, I went ahead and used my stapler. My reasoning behind that was that you probably have a stapler, if not a small one, then a big one in your stash at home. So here's the completed scrapbook page. It has all of the elements of a scrapbook page. It has a background, it has some photos, it has some journaling, including the date, it has some embellishments, and it has a title. And I'm particularly pleased with how the title turned out. I really love the layered sticker with the piece of paper that's cut into a banner, and then the letters on top. The word cool just pops out at you. I really love how that turned out. Then I have 3 clusters of embellishment that draw your eye around the page, starting at the beginning of the title, over to the end of the title, and then up to the journaling. And so each cluster has a couple of elements in common. So each cluster has some of the foam letter sticker shapes, just the shapes that came with the stickers that the title is made out of. And there's one of the black thickers and one of the blue sparkly thickers in each of the clusters. Right there and there. I would have liked to have had a third asterisk for here, but there were only 2 in the package, so I just took this little squiggly line and put it there on the heart instead of using an asterisk. There's a wood veneer on each of the clusters, so there's one there and one there, and then there's 2 right here. And there's also a enamel dot on each of the clusters, so there's one there, and there's one there, and there's one there. There is at least one of the element stickers from the collection on each of the clusters as well. So we've got this anchor sticker and some chevrons, and the photo sticker right here, the camera sticker right here, and then these 2 stickers right here. And so that repetition gives some cohesion to the layout and makes everything seem like it belongs. There's also another extra sticker right here. And I really like how this one turned out. I think it's a great page for just a few supplies. So I encourage you to jump in and get started and create a layout, and don't worry too much about what your style is or how to make it. Just put some stuff together, and you will be well on your way to developing your own look the more you practice.